measuring through the KPIs and pulling this down to the data level so that you can react to whatever happened and then define what should be the continuous improvement loop from the process is a key for the speed and for accuracy and the right focused area that you're supposed to go after.
Okay, Jennifer, we have Michal Wierzchowski today. I've been looking forward to this interview for, I think, a couple years. This is a special one.
I mean, I gotta be honest, this one feels like my birthday. I'm excited about this one.
It was...
This is a good
yeah,
one.
I mean, there's so many good moments. One of the things the guests will hear Michal say in the beginning is how he starts out in planning, and from the beginning he has this end-to-end perspective. And we talk from shop floor to ERP, but people and change management throughout. This one has real breadth.
Yeah. There's, I'm not going to spoil it for the listeners, but some of his answers are just surprisingly good. I mean, I knew that it would be good, but there are some answers to things in here. He kind of talks through, process and tools, and then KPIs and the data, and the order that he put things in is instructive. I'm really impressed with. I'm really impressed with
some
this
twists too. As a deep technologist, when we ask him about his projections of the future, just where his mind goes, I was trying not to talk so much, but I was like, that's a fascinating path. So anyway, let's not hold people back. This is an awesome one.
Yep, you bet. Let's do it. All right, we are excited to welcome Michal Wierzchowski to the show, a seasoned supply chain and transformation leader whose career spans more than 2 decades of optimizing materials, inventory, and operations strategy at one of the world's largest manufacturing solution providers, Jabil. Currently serving as Vice President of Operations and Digital Transformation, Michal leads enterprise-wide initiatives that bridge supply chain precision with factory floor intelligence, helping connect every layer of manufacturing through digital innovation. At Jabil, Michal has played a key role in building scalable systems that unify global planning, procurement, and production processes. From standardizing enterprise-wide KPIs to deploying integrated blueprint management across continents, his work sits at the intersection of strategy, systems, and continuous improvement. Today, he's at the forefront of advancing AI-driven operations, bringing together real-time machine data, supply chain orchestration, and predictive decision-making at scale. In this episode, we'll explore how digital transformation is evolving inside global manufacturers, what it takes to unify IT and OT, and why the future of operational excellence depends on leaders who understand both the factory and the flow of goods that fuel it. We'll also discuss where platforms fit into enabling smarter systems and what's coming next in the journey toward intelligent, connected manufacturing. Michal, welcome to the show.
Andrew, Jennifer, thank you so much for having me here, and welcome everyone.
Great to have you, Michal. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. I want to take you back to your career in materials. There's a lot of people that they aspire to be in the leadership position you are, driving transformations. Sometimes they come from engineering, from business. Your career started in materials, inventory, supply chain optimization. So talk to us about that. What drew you into this world, and how did that foundation shape your perspective on large-scale operational change?
Yeah, sure. It's been couple of years already that I'm living and breathing in this professional world. In general, if I will move back, I've started on the floor as an operator, and that is super critical for the role that I'm in right now, because at the moment when you understand and when you know how manufacturing works and how this world, what are the rules and the conditions on that world and how complex it is much better to understand how to build a strategy later on. So in general, my career was going through the operational manufacturing roles, and materials, especially planning, was the very first, like the true professional space that I was fortunate to hold and host in Jabil. So when I look onto that from the supply chain material space, it is such a great opportunity to understand how the organization works, starting from the moment when you have to source the materials, when you have to figure out what are the specifics, where to go to which suppliers, and then which customers are asking for what kind of a products. It is just giving you a great spectrum and great perspective on how complexity look like within the tech industry, but also what are the needs and what are the assumptions that you have to follow through before you even start to manufacturing something, right? So when I look onto the last 24 years that I spent with the company, I think that starting on the floor and being fortunate to learn the end-to-end process, starting from the bill of material, the customer's needs in the sourcing and engineering aspect of this, throughout the entire end-to-end process, is just giving a great background and perspective of how the organization works, but also what is needed. Driving that from the materials, and then understanding what are the needs from the customers and the suppliers. It draws me to the point where the digital elements of that is so critical, through the data, through the decisions, through the connectivity, and through the system. So combining that knowledge is just, for me, is giving me a great opportunity for providing and defining the path for the company moving forward.
I love that. No, that was super crisp. That yeah, from you started on the floor, and then the position you were in, especially around planning materials, meant from the beginning you were thinking end to end, you were seeing things, and that's certainly true of you today. That you've got this kind of shop floor to top floor perspective of the end to end process that you always bring with you.
Yeah, fantastic. So let me ask you to kind of take the wide shot of that career then. What are some of the pivotal moments? I think we all have either exciting moments or challenges that kind of shape our transition into leadership and that
Right.
expanded scope. And from you, it was from supply chain optimization, now looking at enterprise-wide transformation. Talk me through some of those moments that kind of shaped that trajectory for you.
I would say everybody's professional career is equipped and fortunate, with all of those situations. Whether those are like very positive stories that you can pull up, and the challenges and the opportunities that are out there. And I feel like, on both ends, whenever you can tell the successful story, because you've done something great with a team and you can bring it up, it is shaping your experience, and then the personality. But what I'm appreciate the most, those are the challenging moments where you have to deal with a giant amount of the complexity. Very often dealing with escalations with the customers, in a good reason, because everybody wants to align and wants to get what is expected. But I believe that all of those challenges that we are dealing with, the difficult decisions that we have to make, it just create the personality, but also it is giving you a tremendous opportunity to learn, and then figure out what else you have to put on top of whatever so that you are getting better for the future, right? So I would say, like, all of those great stories and challenging stories, they're important for the professional growth, but especially when you are able to go through challenges in the difficult situation, especially with the people who feel that they are standing behind you. Those are the ones that are shaping a personality and helping to understand, how the leadership framework should be constructed. And then you are figuring out, like, what is your style in it, and identifying what are your strengths, what are your areas that potentially you might have to enhance and adjust. Those are the moments that are shaping, and in my opinion, the profile of the leadership that you are becoming.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think that's true. I think I've seen, I had a good friend who was the CFO of a very, very large company tell me that at one point they had they often they'll have these executive leadership kind of
Right.
offsites in the team building. And I remember him telling me that they had a leadership coach come to one of those at one point and said, I want everybody in the room to write down a point in your career when you felt like you were at your very best. Like when you are just so proud of how you performed and things worked out. And he said they gave us, 10 minutes or whatever to write that down. And he said, we went around and he said, how many of you wrote down something that was just when things were really hard or a crisis or a challenge or just something difficult? And he said, every hand went up. He said everybody felt like one of their high points is where they learned and where they overcame and had an opportunity to use some of those leadership skills that they had learned. And that's what they considered their high point.
Right.
So I completely agree with that. I think that's pretty true. Do you have does that resonate with you? Do you have any in particular that that this has been the same for you?
It is exactly the same. I think human nature by design, whenever you're talking about the good stories, those are like, sometimes you feel like they are given. Those are like things that just happens, right? But then whenever you have to face the challenge, and then you have people that you have to take care of, and then people are relying on you to make a decision. Then you have a thousands of thoughts flying in your head, and you're trying to figure out what is the best mixture of those decisions so that you can make the best out of whatever you know, whatever your experience are. But also you have to understand what is your team behind that also, like what are the strengths, what are the elements that you can leverage to overcome the challenging situations. I 100% resonate with what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
I, I want to take you to the shop floor now, Michal, and chat about kind of machine level data for a moment. Because among a variety of things, one of the things that struck me about you when we met early on was how you were like, you just have this clarity of what data can drive at the organizational level. And a lot of people are like, you tell me why would this, what can this data do for me? But you had clarity about that from the beginning. One of the phrases that you've said since the beginning, which I don't think I've ever heard somebody say, is you were like, we need to connect the gears of Jabil and drive. You have this sense of like this engine, and you refer to the gears as like the different processes. But a lot of executives don't have the clarity of what their machine level or their process level data does for them. So how did you get that perspective early on, before necessarily that many of the current use cases were out there, that data, that connectivity mattered? Where did that come from?
As I was mentioning at the beginning, I started on the floor. So I think for me, it is more like the natural, instinct where you touch the machine on the floor, where you had to, replace the spare parts, and then you had to react whenever the machine went down or something was going not necessarily right. There is a tons of information that is surrounding not only the machine but the entire environment. So when I started to work more on the digitalization, on the digital transformation, and those kind of things, I've been looking into that from the perspective of like, well, there's a lot of analytics that you can drive. That you can do a lot of statistics, you can do a lot of calculation. But then at the end of the day, if you are not able to recognize what the machine is saying, but it goes through the paper, or you are losing some certain information, it will be incomplete, and you cannot get into the to the level of the accuracy that you're expecting, right? So in my head, when I'm thinking about the digitalization, it is almost like the electric system. Like
Mm.
in the building, you have every single room has a switch, but then that switch is connected to the bigger set of the switches. So pretty much, you can turn on the light in this office, but also within the open space on some certain floor, you can either turn on or shut down the light only for that section. And I'm thinking about like the way how manufacturing works in exactly the same way. It is a series of the switches that provide some certain signals up and
Mm.
down that you have to combine. And whether you want to manage one set of the offices, if I will still keep this analogy with the electricity, then you can have like a string of some certain machines that they have to communicate, turn on, turn off with each other, type of the information. Then it is exactly the same with the data, right? You have to cluster some certain elements of the data, and without the connectivity, you won't be able to do it because of a few things. One, you need to understand, or you have to get the data out of the machine in an understandable way so that you can recognize the commonality and where the same machines are sitting in different facilities. But on the other way, you have to be able to say like you rely on those data,
Mm-hmm.
because if you are then allowing yourself to go and modify a little bit here, a little bit there, because you need to have a different name or you have to have a some additional information, then suddenly it is not becoming relevant for each other, right? The data between the machines are not relevant for each other, right? So that is the way how I was looking into that when I was thinking about analytics and AI and everything that was coming. I was thinking about like, well, if those switches, which could be represented by the machines, are not working well with each other, you won't be able to manage the entire facility. You won't be able to manage entire region and entire company in the understandable way, so that you can prepare everything for very rapid, advanced deployment of AI. Because at the end of the day, for me, what is really important is one, to understand the technology, being able to implement, but what is super critical, especially in the high tech, it is the speed and ability to industrialize it. and
Mm.
then making sure that those foundations are working well and they are, communicating in an understandable way so that you can accelerate the deployment of AI is critical. And that is what draws me into those conclusions that connectivity is the very fundamental element that is like must to have, especially for the high tech.
Yeah, that's something you've done and Jabil has done. It's like you have to be extremely selective on the use case level, but when you actually have one that works, you've been able to scale them rapidly and actually harvest a great ROI from them. And that requires a lot of pre-thinking and pre-work so that the infrastructure is in place to have done that rapid scaling.
We've heard you talk a little bit about building the role-based agents. This is why it's important for that foundation to be in place. You've talked about some of those role-based agents and not just generic chatbots. And then, of course, we're hearing, of course, that's what everybody wants. But I think then the reality is, where can it exist? Is it reality today, right? We've heard a lot about the multi-agent systems, omniverse in manufacturing.
Uh-huh.
From your vantage point, how do you see some of these ideas evolving? What are the use cases that you think are closest to starting to deliver impact on those data foundations?
This is a really interesting question, and if I would like to go like very broad with that, I don't think that we would have enough time. But one of the things where I believe, there's a huge advantage, starting with the agents. I think today, the agent to agent type of the term that people are using is becoming a little bit blurry, in the same meaning like people are using AI. You cannot use term AI saying like this is going to fix everything, because if you are thinking that AI is going to fix everything, you're not specifying the scope, like you say, like those use cases, right? So when I think about the agent to agent, I'm thinking almost like the active robotic enhancement and augmentation of the people that will keep monitoring some certain parameters continuously. And at the moment when something might go off, it will start to integrate with each other and then either provide a feedback or insight for the operator or for the user, or just make a decision, right? So that is one. Then two, from the omniverse or the verse in general perspective,
Hmm.
I think that from the high tech perspective, this is like a ginormous opportunity from the side of defining, libraries of the machines, libraries of the data, and making sure that all of those things is being organized. So, couple things like, I will start first of all with this omniverse or verse type of the thing. I think that there is a giant opportunity for the industry to evolve with the digital thread and the digital twin and simulation. A lot of companies are driving already digital twin or simulation, a little bit here, a little bit there. But I think when I think about the digital twin, I'm thinking about like the entire end-to-end view, which is starting from the suppliers, going through the way how you are manufacturing your assets, how you are manufacturing your direct materials, how you are constructing all of those signals from the customers and suppliers, how you are getting materials in house, and then how you're manufacturing. I think very often companies or the leaders from the digital transformation perspective, when they talk about the digital twin, it is becoming like line or warehouse to the line, but it is so much more out there that I think, continuously we have to look onto that holistically. There's a logistics channels, there's a lot of sourcing elements and the decisions that are happening over there. There's a lot of insight from the customer. So, when I think about the digital twin and simulation, it is not only engineering study of that, but it is the entire end-to-end flow that is creating a lot of opportunities. So, couple of use cases that we've started to develop. It is to run some certain analytics in a simulation for the different path on how we are using logistics channels, whether this side or that side. Everybody remember the Suez Canal challenges that were out there. Those are the things that were forcing us to some degree to create those alternative routes and the solutions so we can understand that. So that's one of the use cases. When I push it to the manufacturing space, a couple things that happened. It was about the quality and predictability. Traditional manufacturing model is always like in a responsive mode. So, you go and manufacture for a shift, you go and manufacture for a day, then you look onto those KPIs, and then you start to think like, well, what happened, and then why did this happen, and what I can do to prevent it in the future. Right now, the technology and the environment allowing us to start to put some tolerance around the parameters or the KPIs. And that is where we built a very extensive use case where we say like, well, we don't want to know only when something goes off or goes out of the tolerance. We want to know when some certain parameters are starting to deviate from the middle center of what it should be, and then whether it is trending up or trending down, and then understand like why it happened, so that we can call out previous machine, or we can call out the actions from the operators, and then start to predict like what would happen if this trend will stay like this, right? And then with that, we can identify what are the fixes that either somebody else put in place on different facility, different machine, so that we can replicate them, or alert the engineers, technicians, or the operators, so that they can understand what are the variations of some certain parameter, and then call out some certain, like, let's call it best practices, what potentially could avoid it. So that is another big use case that we put in place when it comes to the IoT, all of the connectivity that we were working, Andrew, with you and your team, and then controlling the parameters, and then understanding whenever they are getting slightly off, still okay, but slightly off, closer to the tolerance, and then start to generate some actionable triggers, because that is critical.
So I want to get your hot take because as you were describing these solutions, and on one hand, there's so much that can be learned and shared across an organization. There's also so much that's specific. So, build versus buy, central versus local. Like, how do you think about that? Should solutions be done centrally and rolled out? Should sites be able to have their own custom fit solutions? Like, how do you work that?
I'm going to use the most favorable term in the industry. It depends.
Fair
Well,
enough.
so I'll tell you, like, I'm not a big fan of like the centralized solutions only. Of course, there are some certain elements that are non-negotiable. Think about IoT, think about the protocols, MQTT brokers, and those kind of things are fundamental elements. But I think with that, you have to have a decentralized effort and innovation and creativity that continuously will bring some insight that will help you to understand like how the overall ecosystem should look like, right? So for me, when I look onto that, it is a mixture. It is a mixture of a definition of non-negotiable things without which you cannot move on, like the example that I was giving with all of those electrical switches and those kind of things. If you won't be able to connect them, if you won't be able to put the wires out there, things are not going to work, right? So there is some certain level of global centrally defined non-negotiable elements. But because the nature of manufacturing is that the things are happening in the facility, and nobody knows better what are those elements that could be improved than the people who are touching the products, who are assembling the products, right? And that is where you have like a giant amount of the human horsepower, brain horsepower from the people who are bringing continuously a very great ideas on how to improve some certain things. So for me, if I will conclude it from the industrial perspective, I think the art is about combining centrally managed elements with the giant insight and injection of the continuous improvement and innovation that is coming from the side. So that is about like the local versus central. But when you ask about the buy or make, there has to be also a reasonable split. I'm a very big supporter of defining an environment from the perspective of building strategic partnership, because there are companies that are specified in very specific elements of the technology or the industry. So if we as a company, we are able to articulate very well what is the scope that we need, either through your company, through SAP, through Siemens, AWS, you name it, what exactly we need, and we work together, and we rely on the partner that they are going to deliver the most critical elements, while we are working to integrate the entire ecosystem with the elements that we make. That is where I think the industry is going to gain the most from the speed, and that is what most of the companies are looking for. It is the speed and time to response, right? Which I believe the combination of the central non-negotiable elements, the innovation that's coming from the side, and then the strategic partnership through the perspective of make and buy. if like the art in the companies that are winning are the ones that are able to coordinate those and then stitch them together relatively fast, so that we can deliver to the market.
That was a great answer. Yeah, I heard that proverb was coming to mind: the "go fast, go alone; go far, go together." And you split. It was like this is a hot question because it's obviously both, but you were dividing out some of the elements. Like, yeah, you need your central technology partners. You need pieces like the brokers and the connectivity standard. You need the innovation and the creativity, the knowledge of each individual site, and like that's actually the partnership that's needed on both sides of that coin. That was really well said.
And I would add to that, because at the end of the day, we are proud to continuously evolve and say like we are people centric company.
Yeah.
We are relying a lot on the tenure of knowledge and
Hmm.
experience that we have within our facilities, and then that is the most important element. How you take the knowledge, the tenure of the knowledge that is out there, then put it all together with the digital world, and how you can very quickly start to exchange it, so that you are starting to build a systemic way on then grasping the knowledge, but also cultivating and reusing that knowledge whenever it is needed.
Mm. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
central piece.
it's fantastic. And I think that it begs the question that I think probably a lot of our listeners are hearing as we're talking about this, that, you know, how then do you take that innovation and, that spirit and balance that? You can't do, organization wide change without some sort of standardization. So where do we find that balance? You've said before, I think that I think standardization doesn't stifle innovation, that it enables it, right? I think that's personally true, but I think it's also a challenge to make sure that that is true. So, talk to me a little bit about how you, in your role, balance some of that global process discipline that you've talked a lot about with also some of that site level,
Mhm.
autonomy and adaptability.
It's true. Like when you bet on the standardization too much, you can swing pendulum too far, and then you are losing this flexibility. So what we've done, we were working through that from the perspective of identifying what are the common elements that contribute with driving and manufacturing the products, versus what are those unique requirements that are critical, either from the customer standpoint, from the country standpoint, or the legal regulation standpoint.
Hmm.
So what we've done, we figured out like some certain level of balance. When you talk about standardization, we are talking about like non-negotiable elements that I already said a few times. But this is the level, like we're saying, without this you cannot operate. You don't have the right plumbing, you don't have the right wires, and then you won't be able to take an advantage for the next level of technology. But then also, when it comes to those unique requirements, we are keeping them together with the customer base. We are keeping them together with the facility, but we are not leaving them like widely open, so that everybody can develop their own tools, because then suddenly you are overcomplicating and creating a complexity within the environments, right? What we did, though, we went very broadly with the low code no code environment, where we are building this. We build in the flexibility within the standardization. So we are saying, here's your core. Those are the elements that you are getting from like non-negotiable elements that we define, and we are saying like LCAP is the path, is the gate for you to learn and be able to define and develop unique requirements. However, you have to stay with some certain governance element, so that we keep the flexibility, but at the same time we are building a portfolio of those unique requirements and special features and functionality that we are building up, so that once you build something that might be unique today, if tomorrow somebody comes and asks for something similar, at least you have a 60% of coverage. And that is how we are evolving with the speed, and that's how we are keeping the flexibility versus standardization in the balanced way.
I want to dig into one of your other best practices that I've been curious about, Michal, which is integrated blueprint management. I've heard you talk about it just a bit. I know you pioneered this idea at Jabil. Say more about that. What is that system? How has it evolved? how has it been important across continents and cultures?
That is that's interesting story. So few years back when we were looking onto the ERP upgrade, we started to look onto that from the perspective, out of the box, off the shelf type of the environment. If we would take like that, and then we wanted to put into our environment how it would look like, and then when we started to build it up, I realized that if you keep focusing on the system, then apparently you're trying to push system, and then you are pushing the process to adjust so that the system can work, which is a wrong approach. And then when we look onto that from the perspective of like how we can make sure that the system is playing the right role so that we can deliver towards our customers, we realize that the BPM, business process management framework, is very important and critical. And very briefly, what it does, it just define a few layers. One, the process layer, which is the most critical. If you don't start from the process, then pretty much you drive blind. It's the same like when you take your first exam on driving license, right? Like if you get in and you have your car as a tool, well, you can drive, but if you don't understand the rules, if you mix red light with the green light, not necessarily are going to drive safe. And exactly the same here. If you are not defining your process, if you don't understand your processes, then you won't be able to dedicate in the right way the needs towards the system. So when you look onto the BPM, you start with the process, then you say like, this is what I need. Those are in and outs, my SIPOC. Then you go to the tools layer and you start to understand, well, is it the right tool? And if not, then should I adjust the tool that I have? Or maybe I should reconsider to changing a tool or application, right? So process level, then you go with the tools, then you go with the KPIs so that you can measure the process executed through the tools and then what you are getting as a performance. And then the last level is data. So if you frame it from that perspective, process, tools, KPIs, and the data, then you are building this closed loop environment, where starting from the process, you execute through the tools, you measure that through the KPIs, you understand whether you did good or you might need to improve something. Then you go to the data layer, and the data layer is defining either the fixes or predictive element, but also it defines what you have to take and go back to the process again, so that either you can adjust the process and make it better, or there's something that you have to re-engineer. So BPM process is very critical for us, going through those four layers, but we always start from the process. We never start from the tools. There is a lot of examples. I'm sure like everybody has it. In the past, we were trying to approach some certain problem with a tool, and the only thing that it makes for us is to allow you to gain more scars with all of the challenges that you have, right? So starting from the process, going through the tools, measuring through the KPIs, and pulling this down to the data level so that you can react to whatever happened, and then define what should be the continuous improvement loop from the process is a key for the speed and for accuracy and the right focused area that you're supposed to go after.
I love that framework because I can just hear immediately how it applies across the stack from ERP processes like payments or order receiving down to like doing soldering paste better or maintenance or quality repair process, and then tools, KPIs, data, right? So I guess okay, I want to, given you have this experience from ERP all the way down to shop floor operations, you're one of the best people to ask this big picture question to, which is like manufacturing in 2030, 2035, even like 5 to 10 years from now. What do you see coming in the future? Like what capabilities, technical, cultural, are you seeing that you think are going to define the future of manufacturing?
It is a big question. Definitely. I don't think that there is a ready answer that anybody would have. The way how I look onto this, there are two major things that immediately comes to my mind. One is the system thinking element. So seeing beyond the silos and then understanding, how the system work, a system, not application, but the overall system as the organization, and then understanding, what are the connection point. That is critical because, when you look onto that from the perspective of the system thinking, immediately you are starting to look onto the it is called the mental models, right? Some certain problems that you are seeing, you might see it in a different way than I do see, right? And if I will just make a case, if you are a little bit more pessimistic than I am, you will be continuously looking for the problems behind it, right? And then if I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are, I was like, well, those are just the disruptions. The overall things are working, and I think the art is to combine those two together. From the system thinking perspective, making sure that we continuously understand what are those opportunities and areas for the improvement. So we have to continuously go with continuous improvement, and then identifying those. But also you cannot go like that far where you are trying to highlight only the things that you have to improve. There is a lot of good things that is happening always within the system that you have to embrace. It is exactly the same when people are working in own personal development, and that's what I'm saying to my people. Everybody has a strengths and everybody has an areas for the improvements. If you focus on one, then you forget about the other ones, right? But at the same time, like many people are thinking, well, I need to focus on the areas that I need to improve, and I'm saying no. You have to keep balance, because the reason why you are where you are, the reason why you do what you do, is because of your strengths, and the mixture of that is really critical. So I would say, like, the first thing is a system thinking, and then it is going to cut across everything. It is going to cut across readiness from the manufacturing, from all of the fundamental elements, but also how AI and the next generation technology is going to fit into the system. So that is one. The second thing that I believe is critical is people first leadership element. Um, Today, even more than in the past, the cross functional collaboration is becoming critical, not only because the data are cutting across all of those things, all of those functions, but because without the cross functional collaboration and coordination,
Yeah.
you are not able to gain the speed. And then let's face the truth. Today, everybody's looking for, like, how quickly you can respond to the question.
Hmm.
If you go, let me make an example. If you go Amazon.com and you click something, you want to order it, and then you will start to see this continuously moving circle, you will stop going there. But it is
Hmm.
not happening, right? So, like, I think the environment just created this habit, in all of us, that we don't have a patience to wait. So the time to response 5 and 10 years from now is going to be the critical. Everybody and every single bit within the industry will be almost like a real time response.
Hmm.
So, people first leadership element and mentality, I think, is very critical to create this continuous learning element, but also understanding where are those elements that are critical for responding to the ask, whether from the customer, whether from the environment. But then it create also this respect towards the frontline wisdom, so that you create a synergy. So I would say system thinking and people first leadership, those are the first two critical elements that are coming onto my mind. Obviously there's a tons of other things, but from the leadership perspective and from the company's perspective, I do believe that those are the most important elements that everybody should cultivate and everybody should be focusing on, because that is where the true value proposition and the speed and time to response is going to come from.
Oh man, I love that so much. It's funny because it's so interesting that that's where you took that question, because right before you asked that question, Andrew, and Michal answered it, I had this thought that I said, Michal really is, like, clearly such a born systems thinker. Like, this is just like, and I would say one of the best in the business for sure. Like, that is just how you were wired. You're so good at that. And yet then you answer in exactly the, like, just what people want to hear, which is, you started with, well, if I think a little more pessimistic, or you think more pessimistic and I think more optimistic, and I thought, but that's the human element. That is literally the human element right there. And then you drove that through exactly like that balance. And I love that you said, that people first leadership. And I argue that that's so important right now, especially as AI is unfolding and we want AI to unfold. We're pushing for all of these amazing ways that AI can unfold. But I've said before, AI shouldn't be. Andrew has heard me say this before. I don't want AI to come in and do my creative and my fun for me. I want it to come in and do my dishes. I want to clean my floor. I want to do all those things that I don't want to do. So yeah, we have to think about, the people first part of this is so important. That's the thing that will still open up innovation and open up organizational change. When people are excited to do it, you can see that it's bettering them and it ties to an organizational goal. I mean, I loved your response for lots of reasons. I thought that was awesome. So let me get to my question in this, which is, as this is happening very quickly, we talked about that. What's your advice for leaders that are navigating some of these digital transformation initiatives and being able to keep their people at the center of those decisions?
Again, human-centric centric leadership is critical. I believe that understanding what the technology is bringing is critical. And for the future leaders, I think from the cultural perspective, you have to make sure that you are pulling your people along the way. Especially right now, as the technology is getting more complex, we are getting new solutions, the next generation of chat GPT type of the solutions. You have to make sure that you are bringing people all along together with you, because naturally it is, we are moving so fast in a very fast pace. We tend to go and figure out something, and then if we are not dragging people together with us, you're getting at a point where you look around and it's like, well, there's nobody who understands what I'm trying to do. So I do believe that this is the most critical element. As I was mentioning about system thinking, and then the people first mentality. The third element that I would add into that mix, it is change management and adaptability, which is happening through your ability to define what the future is, and then pull the people along the way on what you are trying to achieve. Because like if you look across the industry, there was a lot of great ideas in many places, but some of those the companies that made a tremendous effort and then put some certain ideas were not able to realize benefits on that because they were not pulling people along the way, and they were not creating an environment where everybody understood what is the common goal, because it is so easy and so simple to get lost with the complexity if you are not keeping your people together with you along the way where you are heading to. So I think this, the change management and adaptability is combined with the next generation of the systems and then the technology, and the future leaders are going to be the winners with that, are going to be the ones who will figure out how to use technology, and then align across the team, and then pull the team and get the team along together to go after defined objective and the goal.
I want to just tag on that, Michal, because I think for people listening, your answer hits me so hard because I know how much of your day you spend in technology, knowing everything about it. How do you train this or that model? What's the structure of this data? And still, when you're given that question, it's just so clear, the people first leadership, the change management, like that's the hard part. That's the big pieces to do, and it builds on that foundation of understanding technology. But I just wanted to highlight, because for the people that don't know you as well as I do, knowing how you have to spend your day and the level of knowledge you have on technology, and then that answer on top of it hits a lot harder.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, time for rapid fire. Michal, is there a book, movie, or TV series that inspires you when thinking about the future of manufacturing?
There's a lot. First of all, there's a lot. I would go like with the classics, Toyota Production System, but Taiichi Ono, many others. But if you ask me like about the specific thing that I think that made a really big impact on me, was Red Gold documentary movie. And they are talking about industrializing tomato sauce making industry. And then there's a company in California, Morningstar, I think. And like if you have a chance, to watch it and then see how they organize the facility. Morningstar in California, tomato sauce industry, and the way how they are running the industry, which is super complex. And the general manager for that facility said like he made it so simple that a high school graduate can run the facility. So I would strongly recommend to look this on this one. There's a lot of other interesting things about like changing the power of like who is the leader in tomato sauce industry is interesting, but specifically that one made a big impact on the way how I'm looking into the industry.
Super cool. Can't wait to check that out.
Right? We'll have to pull that one up. Very cool. Okay, Michal, is there which leader or innovator in technology or engineering do you admire the most and why?
First of all, again, there's a lot of individuals that made a really giant impact and influence on the industry. Starting from Henry Ford, we have Elon Musk, James Dyson, but I'm a really big fan of all of this, like the waste optimization. So I would say like the one that I value the most from like the approach in the mindset perspective, I would say Taiichi Ono.
Okay, very cool.
Hey, ChatGPT, now GPT-5. Michal just said Taiichi Ono, who helped develop the Toyota production system, inspires him. Who is that for people that don't know?
Absolutely. Let's dive into that a bit. Who was Taiichi Ono? Taiichi Ono was a Japanese industrial engineer and businessman, best known as one of the key figures behind the development of the Toyota production system, or TPS. TPS is essentially the management philosophy and practices that later became the foundation for what the world now calls lean manufacturing. Key contributions. 1. Lean manufacturing principles. Ono's work focused on eliminating waste, improving efficiency, and continuously improving processes.
I got it. So, father of that critical system. What piece of technology outside of manufacturing has had the most impact on your life?
As I was growing, I'm from Central Europe, from Poland, so I was fortunate to touch the environment with that much of the technology that we have today. And then I was witnessing the internet, I was witnessing all of this growth of the technology. So obviously right now, language models and ChatGPT and ability to retrieve the information is critical. But I would say the change, that might sounds funny, but the change from the paper map where you had to drive, switching to GPS, I think that is the biggest switch as you were if you were the same as I was, fortunate to grow through this period. I think the switch from the regular traditional paper maps, which I was using to drive, at some point going to GPS, I think that is the biggest change. And then always when I think about what I am doing, I'm looking onto that from the GPS perspective. When you get into the car, when you push the button or say like, hey Siri, take me there, you are not thinking like how the routes are going to get connected. It is just happening. So I think there's a lot of interesting models and the systems that are helping to connect all of those dots with a giant amount of information. So I would say GPS probably is the one that continuously keep motivating me also to think like how to connect different things.
Great analogy for the guided environment we're all going into now.
Yeah, it's so true. For those of us that drove as maps for many years, it's just so true. It's a good one. Okay, if you could instantly acquire any new skill or knowledge area, what would it be?
Probably emotional intelligence. Because like I do believe that technology, you can go and learn technology, but blending that with emotions and how you respond rather to react, I think is a key. And there's a lot of like those nuances that are making a huge difference. So I would say the emotional intelligence would be that that element that play a key role to understand the context and then how you respond in the real time.
Michal, last, certainly not least, what advice would you give for young professionals starting out in manufacturing today who aspire to positions of leadership like you've had?
I would go like that. Stay curious, no matter the foundations. Embrace both, and then keep learning. Stay hungry for knowledge. I think those are the things. Those are the things that I would say are critical.
This was awesome, Michal. Thank you so much for coming on. Absolutely loved this interview. I've been looking forward to it for a long time, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Michal. It was wonderful.